Good morning, everyone. I am Alderman William Russell, the 692nd Lord Mayor of the City of London. And I'm delighted to be able to welcome you to the Green Horizon Summit at COP26, which I'm very proud to say is being delivered from the Sir Roger Gifford Studio at the South Rotunda by the City of London Corporation and the Green Finance Institute. As the world gathers here in Glasgow, we know the stakes could not be higher. If the world does not act together on emissions, the effects will be devastating. The developed, emerging and developing world must unite and strike a deal to limit global warming and commit to sustainable growth. Delivering global net zero by 2050 will require a re-engineering of the world economy in less than half the time of the Industrial Revolution. And private finance will have a critical role to play. The green revolution needs unprecedented investment, and it requires creative collaboration across the private and public sector. And this Green Horizon Summit provides a platform for financial and professional services, so we can use this opportunity to mobilize private finance for net zero. Thank you all so much for your support so far. The City of London has been at the forefront of the green finance revolution since its inception. And we now want to support and accelerate the transition across the UK and the world. This is what the Green Horizon Summit aims to achieve by tackling four big questions. How can we finance transition and growth? How can we build a global playbook? How can we price carbon and nature? And how can we mobilize investment into emerging and developing economies? I remain optimistic. We are beginning to see the answers, and they are connected. We have made huge strides in greening finance. Thanks to the leadership of Mark Carney, supported by the Chancellor and other finance ministers, by central bankers and by the best brains in our industry, we now have the outlines of a global green playbook. We are building the tools we need. So now is the time to supercharge financing green. We have the firepower. The Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero now represents firms with around $100 trillion of global assets under management. We have built a massive pool of capital ready to be deployed to tackle the climate crisis. We know the direction. We must channel this capital into real-world projects that can drive the green revolution in time, not just for 2050, but for 2030. We can deliver both transition and growth and transform emerging and developing economies. It is also the business opportunity of a generation. And finally, finance will need a global carbon price and is looking to COP26 for a pathway. A proper value and a price for nature cannot be far behind. This is the time to be bold. The stakes will be high, as well as the risks and the returns. But private finance cannot afford to hold back. There is no road to prosperity through high emissions, for the financial world or for anyone else. Money talks, and its message is, go green or go home. Together we have the tools, the capital, and the will. The City of London will be your partner in finding and funding the solutions the world needs. And I am confident that the future's bright, the future's green. Thank you. Now I would like to hand over to Rhian-Mari Thomas, the CEO of the GFI Institute.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and welcome to everyone watching the Green Horizon Summit. We find ourselves today here in this place at this moment, standing at the precipice of an enormous opportunity. Green finance has reached a point of critical momentum. The amount of capital committed to the transaction to net zero from public, private and philanthropic sources has reached unprecedented levels. In private capital alone, as the Lord Mayor mentioned, there is already around $100 trillion of total assets signed up to the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. This is good reason to be optimistic as COP26 gets underway. But this is also the moment when the really hard work begins. The task before us now is to come together in radical collaboration to unlock investment opportunities at speed and scale so we can channel that wall of capital into real economy outcomes that deliver a just and resilient net zero economy. Realising this opportunity will require a mindset shift. So far, we have focused much of our energy as a finance community on greening finance, addressing climate risk in the financial system, viewing finance as a means in itself rather than as a means to an end, focusing on aligning portfolios with sometimes questionable metrics, expending precious energy and talent on secondary asset allocation at the expense of a rigorous focus on deploying primary capital towards real economy outcomes. Deploying primary capital, bank lending, bond issuance, equity issuance, IPOs, private equity, venture capital and real asset investments. These are the tools to effect real change. And let me be clear, the secondary market is also a powerful force for change. But what matters is forceful stewardship over companies' real economy investment decisions, rather than demanding more data. The insatiable thirst for data is sometimes a troubling substitute for action. And we need to improve the frameworks for asset management, holding those companies to account, challenging them on what proportion of a company's capital expenditure and R&D spending is actually driving decarbonisation, whether acquisitions are aligned with their net zero commitments, and importantly, ensuring high emission assets cannot simply be sold off to buyers who will continue their operations with less scrutiny. Since the Paris Agreement, the top 60 global banks have lent $3.8 trillion to fossil fuel companies. Bank lending is the single largest source of additional capital for new and expanding fossil fuel prospects and companies. $3.8 trillion generates a lot of fees. It's a lot of P&L. And unless our global banks intend to shrink to greenness, those revenues need to be replaced. Transforming the global economy in line with the science is a capital-intensive business. It requires rebuilding the asset base companies have invested in for decades, which presents capital providers with a huge investment opportunity, but also considerable risk. And to mitigate that risk, unlock that wall of capital, that will require a shift in mindset. Governments will need to deploy their financial might as catalytic, de-risking capital. So too development financial institutions with their $11.5 trillion balance sheets. They can in turn catalyse new asset classes and investment opportunities, crowding in private capital rather than financing new assets themselves. The same mindset needs to take hold regardless of whether those investment opportunities are in the UK, the US, or in developing and emerging markets. And that is the opportunity we have today. It is an unprecedented opportunity to mobilise private capital in the transition to net zero, and the time has come to seize it. Thank you.